ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। श्री कृष्ण लीला कथने सुदक्ष औदार्य माधुर्य गुणैशयुक्तं वरं वरेण्यं पुरुषं महान्तं श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतये हृदि चैतन्यलीलामृतसारसारं नारायणं त्वं सततं प्रपद्ये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्याय नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। श्याम सुंदर शिखंड शेखर स्मेरहास मुरली मनोहर राधिका रसिक मां कृपा निधे स्वप्रिया चरण किंकरीं कुरु। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे तन्नय माम चरणान्तिके। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So first of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of Sachidanand Thakur Srila Bhakti Vinod, by whose causeless mercy we have received this amazing transcendental scripture, Sri Jaiva. And then my respects to all the assembled devotees. So, as you know, we are now on the sixth chapter of Jaiva, and we have seen that Devi Das, who was the younger son of Lahadi Mahashay, when he came from Shantipur to try and take his father back to Shantipur, he stayed back and he started getting interested in the Vaishnava philosophy. He was asking several questions. But when he saw that that Muslim Qazi came and all the Vaishnavas offered him respect, then he got very irritated because according to him, the Muslims are outcast and the such respect should only be given to Brahmins. So he decided that he is going to bring some very famous and leading pundits, Brahman pundits from different areas, and they are going to have a debate with the Vaishnavas. So several of these pundits came, and they were led by Krishna Chudamani. So even though initially the devotees were not wanting to have this debate because they don't want to get into any useless arguments, but when Krishna Chudamani said things about the Mahajans, that how you are following in their footsteps because what you are doing is not as per the scriptures. So when he made statements like that, then the Vaishnavas decided that we must have a proper discussion with these pundits so as to protect the sanctity of our Guru Parampara as well as the tenets of Sanatan Dharma, because they are so misunderstood. So then they started having this discussion, and Krishna Chudamani posed many questions, specifically regarding how the Muslims and others who are not within the Varnashram system, they can be eligible for bhakti. And the last time we read, he gave an argument that one follows the Varnashram system and then gets through that process purification and then becomes eligible for gyan, for knowledge. And then following the path of knowledge, then some will become nirvishesh brahmvadis, worshipping the impersonal form of the Lord, and some will enter the path of bhakti. So according to him, unless one has followed the Varnashram system, he is not even eligible for the next step, which is Gyan and then Bhakti. So he said, since Muslims are not even within the Varna, they don't even have Karma Adhikar, they don't even have eligibility to perform prescribed duties, so there is no possibility of them get purified, then how can they come to the path of Bhakti? So then Vaishnav Das, so he says, so how can they become eligible for Bhakti? This was his question. So then Vaishnav Das ji starts from here. And in today's class, we are going to go through many, many verses from Bhagavad Gita, from Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures. So we will be going through many verses, and it is important to understand these verses because they are the evidence. So whatever we say, whatever we follow is based on the scriptures. And understanding the meaning of these verses is very important. So Vaishnav Das ji says, sorry, my eyes are having some allergies today. So, so Vaishnav Das ji says, outcast human beings have every right to practice bhakti. And he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, where Shri Krishna, in the 9th chapter, verse 32, he states, Mam hi partha vipashritya ye api syuhu pap yonayah, istriya vaishyah tatha shudraha, te api yanti param gatim. He says, O son of Pritha, so Krishna is speaking to Arjun, that women, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and low-born people who have taken birth in sinful families can attain the supreme destination by taking shelter of me. So he's saying it is not only just the Brahmins or the Kshatriyas who have the right to attain me, to attain the supreme destination. See, many times in certain faiths, and I won't point that out, and even in the misunderstood following of Sanatan Dharma, the women were not given proper respect and they were banished from reading the scriptures or even speaking on them. But here Krishna directly himself is saying, no, that is not right, because them and even those who are not Brahmins or Kshatriyas like Vaishyas and Shudras, and even those who are in low-born families, meaning who are outcast, even they can attain the supreme destination, meaning freedom from cycle of birth and death, and they can attain the supreme abode. How? If they take shelter of me. And here it explains that taking shelter means following the process of bhakti. So then he quotes another verse from Skand Puran, and where also it says that Brahmanda Kshatriya Vaishyaha Shudraha, this is the verse at the bottom of this page, where it says Brahman Kshatriya Vaishya Shudra Va Yadi Vetaraha Vishnu Bhakti Samayuktah Gyeh Sarvottama Chasaha. This is quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's a very important Vaishnav scripture where it says that whether one is a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or an outcast, if he has taken shelter of Vishnu Bhakti, he is considered to be superior to all. So, sometimes one may question that what is the point of understanding or discussing these topics, because nowadays we live in a modern society and nobody really follows the caste system. Unfortunately, there are still people who believe in this system, and therefore it is important to understand that what the scriptures are saying in this regard. And through this, what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is establishing in this chapter, that bhakti is the supreme process, and nobody, irrespective of what caste they are from, what community, what country, what color, what faith, everyone is eligible to perform devotional service. Why? Because constitutionally we are all the same. Jivar Swarup Hoy Krishner Nityadas. This is our constitutional position. This is Jaiva Dharam. This is our eternal religion. So even though these so many different faiths and religions exist, which are based on which country or family or community you are born in, but that is not supported by the Sanatan Dharam. So then he quotes another verse from Naradya Puran, where it says, Shwapachah api mahipala Vishnu bhakta dvij adhikah Vishnu bhakti vihina yaha yati chaha shwapach adhikah. This is also quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas, and here it says that, O king, a devotee of Sri Vishnu is better than a Brahman, even if he is born in a family of dog eaters, whereas a sannyasi who is devoid of Vishnu Bhakti is even more wretched than a Chandal. See, such an important parameter of who is really a Brahman or who is really a sannyasi. So this means that simply by having taken birth in the family of a Brahman, one does not become a Brahman if one is not following the process of devotional service. He says, even if someone who is born in the family of dog eaters meaning they are outcast. They're not, because according to the Sanatan Dharam, the four varnas would not consume meat. So those who were consuming meat, and that also of dogs, so how abominable such people would be. Even among the outcasts, the lowest. So here it is saying that if someone is a devotee, someone who's performing bhakti to Sri Vishnu, then such a person is better than even a Brahman. And then if a sannyasi, someone who has accepted the renounced order of life, someone who's wearing saffron, if such a person is devoid of Vishnu Bhakti, as is the case in those who are impersonalists, then such a person is in fact even more wretched than a Chandal. So this again establishes that it is bhakti which is more important. Everything else is external. The dress that one is wearing, like that of a sannyasi, the varna or the strata of society one is born in, those are only external things. They have nothing to do with our soul. So now these kind of very important instructions of the scriptures, and it is not only in one, but all throughout the Vedic scriptures, such verses are there. These were withheld from the common people, and therefore they were kept under this false philosophy that only if you are born in a Brahmin family, you have the right to read the scriptures, and nobody else has that right. Now, here, one thing I also want to mention, I think some of you had this question also, that when we mention Sri Vishnu here, many places in the scriptures, it is not mentioning Krishna, right? So, one thing we should understand, that when the word Vishnu is mentioned, it means Vishnu Tattva. So there is the unconscious entities, which is the matter, right? And then the conscious. So that's how the entire creation is two categories: conscious and unconscious. So unconscious is the dead matter. Among the conscious, there is the supreme conscious and the atomic conscious. So supreme conscious is Vishnu Tattva, and the atomic conscious is the Jeev Tattva, the living entities. So when we mention Vishnu, that includes the supreme absolute, who is all pervading, because Vishnu comes from the word Vish, one who is all pervading, one who maintains each and everything by the fact that he's present everywhere. And the epitome of Vishnu Tattva is Shri Krishna, Ishvara Paramaha Krishna, Satchit Anand Vigraha. And then he manifests as Baladev, then he manifests in as Anirudh, Vasudev, Sankarshan, like this, and then so many different manifestations. And then the Mahasankarshan manifests as manifests as Mahavishnu, and then Mahavishnu as from him manifests Garbhodakshai, and then from him Kshirodakshai. So when we mention Vishnu, it is not just one, because Vishnus are of many, many types. Vishnu means Vishnu Tattva. So, and many times in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam, even Krishna is mentioned as Vishnu, because he is the supreme Vishnu Tattva, right? The source of everything. So therefore, there is no such discrepancy when we are saying Vishnu. It's not necessarily meaning that just the four-handed Vishnu, just that most people think the Trinity of Godhead. But here, if one could be worshipping Narayan, because he has so many different forms. One could be worshipping Lord Sri Ram, one could be worshipping Lord Nrsimha based on one's mood, right? So then after hearing this, Chudamani, he says, well, you can quote from the scriptures, right? But it is important to see what is the underlying principle in this consideration. Now, he is saying that if one is born in the in a Muslim family, then that is a defect by birth. Because the fact that you are born in such a family, then he says, how can such a defect be removed without taking birth in another, without taking another birth? So that means you have to die, and then you have to take birth from the womb of a mother who is a Brahmin, and then only you can become a Brahmin. Now Vaishnav Das Ji says, he says the defect of a degraded birth is the result of prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma means previous activity. So that is true, that when we take birth in a certain family, in a certain country, in a certain situation, someone is born rich, someone is born poor, someone is born very beautiful, someone has some disability. So all kind of people, right? So he says, yes, that is true, that it is because of our previous karma that we take birth in a certain situation, right? But this prarabdha karma, how will this be destroyed? See, the philosophy of karma, the cycle of karma is very intricate. We can never come out of it, because irrespective of whatever you do, you will end up doing something which is either pious or sinful. You are cooking in your kitchen, right? And then during that cooking, so many microorganisms may get killed. You are walking and you may step on an insect. So if you read Garuda Puran, according to all of them, there is reaction because every action has a reaction. So like this, you will never be able to come out of it. But did the Lord design the system so we always stay eternally entangled in the cycle of birth and death? No. He has given the process of how we can come out of this prarabdha karma. It can be completely destroyed. He said the process is by uttering the names of Hari, by chanting the names of the Lord. It is said that so many sins are destroyed that we can't even perform that many sins. So that is how powerful the holy name is. नाम चिंतामणि कृष्ण चैतन्य रस विग्रह पूर्ण शुद्ध नित्य मुक्त अभिन्नत्वात् नामिनः. Because the holy name is non-different from Krishna himself, therefore it has all the potencies of the Lord. Just like the Lord can completely purify someone by simply glancing at them, similarly by chanting the holy name all the sins are destroyed. So then he gives many proofs from these scriptures. So first he quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is a very beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam where it says, Nahi Bhagwan aghatitam idam tvat darshanam nrinam akhil papakshayah yat nam sakrit shavanat pukasaha api vimuchyate sansarat. So it says that, let me show the translation, that, oh Lord, and uh, this is comes in the description of Chitraketu, Maharaj Chitraketu, very beautiful and very important pastime described in Srimad Bhagavatam. When Maharaj Chitraketu, after performing tapasya, gets the darshan of the Lord, then he is speaking this, my Lord, it is not impossible for one to be immediately freed from all material contamination by seeing you. Not to speak of seeing you personally, merely by hearing the holy name of your Lordship only once. Even Chandals, men of the lowest class, are freed from all material contamination. Under the circumstances, who will not be freed from material contamination simply by seeing you? So again, he's saying, not, forget about seeing you, forget about chanting. Even if someone hears the holy name, and that person again may be from the lowest class, he is also freed from all material contamination. And then another very beautiful verse, and this is when Ajamil, he is delivered by the Vishnu Dutas. As most of you know this pastime, that when Ajamil had performed all kind of possible sinful activities one can perform, and then when the time of his death came, the Yamadutas came, the servants of Lord Yamaraj, and then seeing them, he was terrified, and he called his younger son, whose name was Narayan. He called Narayan, 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 Narayan 4 times, and 4 Vishnu Dutas appeared. And they prevented the Yamadutas from taking him. So in here, after narrating the story of Ajamil, then Shukadev Goswami says, Na ataha param karma nibandha krintanam mumukshatam tirtha padanu kirtanat nayat punah karmasu sajjate mano rajah tamo bhyam kalilam tato anyatha. He says that those who desire liberation from the bondage of material existence, karma nibandha, means those who are desiring freedom from this entanglement of karma, because karma is binding, right? So Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, karma bandhanaha. Anyone who's, because karma, when we are doing for our own sense enjoyment, it is binding. So he says, anyone who desires liberation from the bondage of material existence have no means of rooting out sin except by the chanting of the holy name of Sri Hari. So he's saying the only way, not by performing tapasya, not by performing austerities, not by performing meditation, by no other means. He says the only means is to chant the holy name of the Lord, who sanctifies even the holy places by the mere touch of his lotus feet. Now he gives a very important reason why it is only by chanting the holy name. He says the reason is, why is it that no other process is able to purify us, is because when one performs Nam Sankirtan, the mind does not become attached to karma again. So this is the reason. Because by performing all other different processes, the desire to enjoy does not completely go away. Because when one practices any other means of atonement, the mind is again contaminated by the material qualities of passion and ignorance, since the tendencies to commit sin have not been destroyed at the root. This is the reason. So there is pap, which is sin, and there is pap beej, the seed or the root of that sin. Just like when we plant a seed in the soil, the roots come out, right? And slowly a plant comes from there, from which there is beautiful flowers and fruits. Now the winter is here, and many of the plants, the at least the leaves and the fruits, flowers may all go away. And then, you may even cut it. But if the roots are still there, the roots are intact, when the weather becomes warm, again, as you see, many plants are such that as soon as the weather starts becoming warmer, the plant starts coming out from the soil. You have not even planted the new seed. Similarly, the weeds are like that, right? If you don't uproot them from the soil, right? If you just cut it from the top, then again that weed will come out. So all the other processes of atonement, so many different processes are described, right? So many different kind of fasts, so many different kind of penances, so many different types of meditations, yagyas. He says all of those, they may destroy the sin, but they will not destroy the tendency to perform the sin, right? Just like see, many times, nowadays a lot of young people, they have problem of addiction, right? Either drug addiction to all kind of liquor, and then they are sent to these kind of de-addiction camps. And if you see statistically, a lot of time when they come back from these places, they again fall back into the same bad habits. Why? Because the taste has not been replaced by a higher taste. So unless you develop a higher taste, unless your senses are relishing something which is sweeter, which is giving you more happiness, then again the mind will at some point, again some problem comes or some problem happens in relationships, again you will go back to the same old habits. So he's saying, but when one performs Nam Sankirtan, because the holy name of Krishna is so sweet, Nam Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Ras Vigraha, it is the embodiment of the sweetness, which is Krishna's Ras Vigraha. It is, Vigraha means form, Ras means sweetness. So it is the form of sweetness. So he says that if one performs Nam Sankirtan, then the mind does not become attached to karma again. It will slowly will automatically develop detachment, will automatically the desire or to enjoy the various fruitive activities and sense pleasures will go away. So therefore, what he's indicating is that even if someone is born in a low class, which is because of his previous sinful activities, so that is the reason he got birth in such a family or such society. But if somehow he comes into contact with the holy name of the Lord, with the devotees, and start chanting, then because the power of the holy name, all his bad tendencies go away. Then he quotes again from Srimad Bhagavatam another verse, another beautiful verse. And this verse is being spoken by Mother Devahuti. So Mother Devahuti, her son was Lord Kapila. And Lord Kapila gave beautiful instructions to Mother Devahuti about Bhakti Yoga. And then Mother Devahuti is praying to Lord Kapila, saying, Ahobat Shwapachoho. So this is in the English is here. Ahobat Shwapacho Ato Gariyan Yat Jihva Agre Vartate Nam Tubhyam Tepus Tapaste Juhu Sasnu Arya Brahmanuchur Nam Grinanti Yete. She says, Ahobat Shwapacho Ato Gariyan. So Shwapacho again means someone who is a dog eater, right? So this word is used so many places in different verses to indicate the lowest of the lowest, right? So if the lowest of the lowest can be purified, that means everyone else can be purified. So he says, Aho bata shwapacho ato gariyan. That what can be said about the greatness of a person who chants the holy names? A person whose tongue utters your holy names is superior to all, even if he has taken birth in the family of dog eaters. Yat jiva agre. Jiva means tongue. Agre, if the tongue of such a person is doing what? Nama tubhyam, is chanting your holy names, then he says his Brahmanical status has already been established in his previous birth. Then we should know that he has already fulfilled all the qualifications of becoming a Brahman. Those fortunate jivas who chant Sri Harinam have already undergone austerities, performed 5 sacrifices, bathed at the holy places, followed the rules of proper conduct, and thoroughly studied the Vedas. Meaning, they do not need any other process to become qualified to become a devotee. And this is the potency of chanting the holy name. Today is Advaita Saptami, the appearance of Sri Advaita Acharya. So some of you who were at the temple today, you would have heard this pastime that Sri Advaita Acharya, who is Mahavishnu himself, by his calling, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world. So he was performing the Shraddha ceremony of his father. And he called all the various Brahmins, many Pandits, and he was in Shantipur. So remember, Lahari Mahasaya is from Shantipur, which is a place of Advaita Acharya. So they all took their seat and they were going to be offered, because in Shraddh, you offer, prasad, you offer prasad to all the Brahmins. But first, it has to be offered to the leader of the Brahman society. So they were all sitting, and there was a high seat, and they were all thinking, "Oh, now Advaita Acharya, because Advaita Acharya was a very respected person, and everyone was, because he used to run a school, he was a teacher and very respected. So everyone was thinking, oh, now he's going to invite me to come on that seat. So everyone was just, waiting, or when he's going to call me. And because if Advaita Acharya calls me and asks me to sit on that seat, then it would be established that I'm the best of the Brahmins in Shantipur. But Advaita Acharya looked around, and then he did not call any one of them. He went outside, and outside the house, at the doorsteps, Haridas Thakur was sitting. And who was Haridas? Haridas Thakur is called Namacharya. He was by birth a Muslim, but he was so attached to the holy name that all day long he was chanting 300,000 times a day. Until that, he would not accept even a grain. So Sri Advaita Acharya ji, and he was sitting outside in the at the base of all the staircases. Why? Because he was thinking that I'm so fallen, I'm an outcast, I'm such a wretched person, such a lowly person. my shadow should not also fall on these great Brahmins, because then everything will become impure. Now Advaitacharya ji asked him, please come inside. He said, no, 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 I cannot go inside. He said, no, you should come inside. He said, no, if I go inside, then the whole place will become impure. But Advaitacharya ji forcefully brought him inside and seated him on that high seat. Seeing this, all the Brahmins became very furious. How can you do this? He is a Malecha. He is such a lowly caste person, and you have dishonored all of us. We will not accept anything here. We will leave right now. Advaitacharya said, yes, all of you should leave right now because you are not qualified. He is the most qualified person. He is a true devotee of the Lord. And they all left in anger. But when they went out some distance, they started thinking, oh, what Advaitacharya is no ordinary person. He is a great scholar. He knows the essence of all the scriptures. So there must be some reason that he has put Haridas Thakur on that seat. So they all came back, and then Advaitacharya explained to them that why it is someone who's chanting the names of the Lord. It is not important what family is born in, whether he is an outcast or a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya, that does not matter. The real qualification is how devoted a person is. They all understood, they begged forgiveness, and then they all took prasadam after Haridas Thakur was first given prasadam. So this is what he explains, Vaishnav Das ji explains. But when Chudamani hears this, now he says, well, if a Chandal can chant by chanting the holy name, if he can become so elevated, then why can't he perform yagyas like the Brahmins? So now Vaishnav Das ji explains a very important point. He says, and now what he's explaining, it is important to understand that he will also explain further. There are certain things that we do according to time, place, and circumstance. So there are instructions of the scriptures that are eternal, but still according to the time, place, and circumstances, the acharyas, the guru, will give certain instructions. Those are only for that particular time, for that particular individual, for that particular era or circumstance. So he says, now this is a time when, of course, in the society, this whole system of caste was very, very prevalent. Now he's saying, well, one may take birth in a Brahmin family. To perform yajna, one has to take birth in a Brahmin family. Now, what kind of yajna? He is referring not to the Vaishnav home, like the yajnas that the Vaishnavas perform. The fact is that in Kali Yuga, nobody can really perform a yajna, because the way it is described in the Vedic scriptures, one has to have so many pure ingredients. One has to be such a pure Brahman to perform these yajnas. So the so-called yajnas that are performed even today in many systems, they perform yajnas. But in fact, none of those yajnas are correct as per what is described in the Vedic scriptures. That's why Mahaprabhu did not give any instruction to perform yajna, and neither it is said in the scriptures. This was in the Satya Yuga. One would perform great austerities, and in the Treta would perform great sacrifices. And for doing those kind of sacrifices, for performing those type of yajnas, one had to be a Brahman. So he's saying one should be born in a Brahman family and must be qualified. How qualified? He says, even if one is born in a Brahman family, but if he is not purified by accepting the sacred thread, then he cannot perform yajna. Similarly, one may become purified by taking up the holy name, but he is not qualified to perform these type of yajna, which are karam kandiya yajna. They have nothing to do with spiritual enlightenment. This is just more of the type of professional duty that a Brahman does. So this is just like, someone who is in the army, right? He knows how to use a gun. And then a civilian also knows how to use a gun. But a civilian would still not be allowed to go and fight on the in when there is a war, right? Even though he knows how to use the weapon. So similarly, even though by chanting the holy name one is qualified, but there are certain things that only a Brahman performs, and that's what he's explaining. But then he says, however, he can perform the limbs of bhakti which are infinitely greater than the yajnas. So to perform the bhakti again, he says, well, even if you can perform the yajna or not perform the yajna, what's the big deal? Because those yajnas are not ultimately going to help you become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. What is going to help is performing bhakti, and that anybody can perform. So when Chudamani hears this, he says, wow, what kind of logic is this? What kind of conclusion is this? The person is not allowed. Now, on one side, you are saying, oh, by performing chanting of the holy name, he's become so elevated. But then he can't even perform a yajna that the Brahmins can perform. So, what is the conclusive evidence of this? So then Vaishnav Dasji says, well, there are two types of human activity, and this is what I was explaining before. A material activity that relates to practical existence, and then spiritual activity that relates to the ultimate truth. So there are two types of activities, two types of instructions. Sometimes based on the time, place, and circumstance, a certain instruction is given, but that's not an eternal instruction. And all our acharyas have done that, because sometimes when you're teaching to someone who is at the very basic level, you cannot tell them to perform very, the something very high, right? So sometimes instructions leniency is shown in performance of certain types of religious activities. So he's saying that material activities that relate to practical existence, that is one type of activities, and then the spiritual activities that are related to the ultimate truth. So a person may have attained spiritual qualification, but that does not necessarily qualify him for particular material activity. So the same example, one may have learned how to use to fire from a gun, right? But from an AK-47 also. But it does not qualify him for fighting in the war because he's still a civilian. So he says, similarly, one may be a Muslim, and by chanting the holy name, he can attain the highest spiritual platform from a spiritual perspective, but from a mundane platform, he is still not eligible for certain things. So then Chudamani questions, why is that? What is wrong if he does so? Then Vaishnav Dasji says, well, there are certain social customs, and if one does not follow those social customs, one is guilty of secular impropriety. So what he's trying to explain is that most of the people in the world are conditioned, right? And even though the Vaishnav philosophy, the Sanatan Dharma, has this vision that everyone is equal, right? Because all of us are eternal servants of the Lord. But how many people actually understand it? So sometimes you have to also follow what the people in general in society are following to maintain the social structure and the peace in the society, and then slowly elevate people to the higher platform. So he says, therefore, if some of these social customs are not followed, then members of society who take pride in their social respectability do not condone such activities, right? Then unnecessary confusion and unnecessary disturbance will be created. Not that this is a cause of disturbance, right? But because people are not at that level. So therefore, they will unnecessarily create a lot of disturbance. So then Chudamani says that, well, please tell me what is the cause of eligibility for karma and what is the cause of eligibility for bhakti. So, what makes us eligible for karma and what is the eligibility for bhakti? Now, Vaishnav Das, he, and then I will explain this briefly. He says that for karma, it is one's nature, birth, and other such practical causes that make one suitable for a particular type of work. And he uses a phrase, tat tat karma yogya swabhav janma. And he says the source of eligibility for bhakti is tatvik shraddha. So now we will discuss in detail what this means, because Chudamani also now gets confused. He says, well, don't try to intimidate me with the language of Vedanta, because now Chudamani is understanding that Vaishnav Das and these Vaishnavas are not ordinary emotional people. They actually understand the scriptures. He's quoting so many beautiful verses, and Chudamani is running out of arguments. So he says, well, you don't try to intimidate with all these phrases. Explain to me what it actually means. So what does tat tat karma yogya swabhav means? So he says, now tat tat karma yogya swabhav. Swabhav means nature. So he says that the qualities that are found in the nature of a Brahman. So now he explains all the different qualities that different varnas have. We would not go through these in detail, but these are explained in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he is describing the qualities of various varnas. So first he says, for the Brahman, Shamo Damaha Tapaha Shaucham Kshanti Arjavam Evacha Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam Brahm Karma Swabhavajam. So this is what Vaishnav Das ji also says: peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmins work. Meaning, if someone is truly a Brahman, will have these qualities. He will be peaceful. He would not have anger issues, which many Brahmins, so-called Brahmins, have. They will be self-controlled. They will have knowledge not just the bookish knowledge, but actual understand what the essence of those verses are. So like this, he explains not only of the Brahmins, but also of the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and also of the Shudras, what their natural qualities are. So he says the qualities, now this is of the four varnas, and then he says the qualities in the nature of an outcast. So after describing the qualities of a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, which you can read in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, then he says what are the qualities of those who is an outcast. He says those qualities are ashaucham, meaning unclean. See, this one quality makes most of the people today an outcast. So according to the Vedic system, irrespective of which four varnas you are, but you follow the principle of cleanliness. So even when you go to the kitchen, you actually, because we are always cooking for Thakurji, you should be clean, you should have bathed, you should not wear slippers. So there are so many different things that are described, and not only just external cleanliness, but also internal cleanliness. Now, how many people nowadays, we see nowadays people don't even follow the basic principles of cleanliness. Then he says mithya, being dishonest, stealing, and then atheism, and quarreling for no reason, vritha kalaha. Everyone is subject to this problem. For no reason we quarrel. This is the symptom of the age of Kali. Mandah sumandamateha mandbhagya hi upadrata. For no reason we will quarrel. And then lust, anger, and hankering to satisfy one's senses. These are not the qualities of a Shudra. These are the quality of someone who's outside the Varnashram system. So basically, according to this, most of us are not even at the level of Shudras. So he is actually in Skanda Puran, it says, Kalahu Shudraha Sambhava Sarve, that actually in Kali Yuga, everyone is a Shudra. So there the word Shudra is being used to say someone who is very low. So in reality, in Kali Yuga, nobody can claim oneself to be a Brahman. Therefore, Mahaprabhu, the Lord has given the chanting of the holy name, because it is the holy name only that will completely root out the tendency to perform sinful activities. And given that people in this age are not able to follow any other rules and regulations, he has made the chanting of the holy name so easy that even if you don't follow the rules, even if you are in an unclean state, you can still chant the holy name. So he says that the Shastras describe that one's Varna should be determined according to these different natures. So this is another very important verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, where it says, Yasya, let me go to this English. Yasya yat lakshanam proktam punsaha varnabhi vyangakam yat anyatrapi drishyat tatra tat ten ev vinirdishet. So it says yasya yat lakshanam proktam. So whatever different qualities are described of the four varnas, yat anyatrapi drishyat. So if one sees that someone is a Brahman, but he is manifesting the qualities of a businessman. So it says tat tenev vinirdishet. So then he should be classified according to the qualities, according to the nature that he has, not according to his birth. So like this, he says, it is described in many, many places in the scriptures. A person's nature gives rise to his inclination and taste for particular activities, and it is this particular nature that is known as the nature according to specific types of work. So this is what when he used the word tat karma yogya swabhavam, he's saying according to one's nature, one performs work. He says in some cases, though, birth is prominent factor in ascertaining a person's nature, and in other cases, association is the primary factor. So what he explains here, that there are many things. Nature could be because of your sanskars from the previous life. It could be also based on which family you are born in and what kind of upbringing you have, what the type of association you keep. And because of that, you may have certain different inclinations. Just as last time I was saying, someone could be born in the family of a teacher, a university professor. That does not mean that he has to become a teacher only. He can become a soldier, he can become a businessman, he can do any other work, like he can become a plumber. So just like in our society today, we don't prevent anyone from following whatever profession they like. So similarly, in the Vedic system also, it is based on one's inclination and one's qualities that their varna is decided. So he said it is great mistake to think like this, that it is only by birth a person's varna is described. And then Chudamani asks, what is meant by Tatvik Shraddha, faith in the absolute truth? And he says that Tatvik Shraddha is pure-hearted faith in Bhagwan, which gives rise to spontaneous attempt to attain him. So this is the qualification for bhakti, someone who has pure-heartedly a desire to attain him. And then he says opposite to this is atatvik shraddha, when one has an erroneous conception of Bhagwan, not the right conception. And then one follows the path, one reads the scriptures or imitates to be following the path of bhakti, not to attain the Supreme Lord, but for his endeavors are more in self interest. They're rooted in pride, prestige, and worldly desires. So he may show that I am a devotee and he is able to recite verses, but that is more for his personal pride and prestige. So after this, Chudamani asks, and this is the last question that we'll go through, but a very important point that Vaishnav Das ji will explain. Chudamani says, let us admit that some people have developed faith in the Shastras. Although their natures are not elevated, are such people also eligible for bhakti? So his question is, so Tatvik Shraddha is also called Shastriya Shraddha. So meaning having faith in the words of the scripture. And therefore following what the scriptures says. Scripture says, Harer Nam, Harer Nam, Harer Nam eva kevalam, kalau nastev nastev gatir anyatha. That in the age of Kali, except for chanting the holy name, except for chanting the holy name, except for chanting the holy name, there is no other process. So one who has that faith will only chant the holy name of the Lord. So this is called Shastriya Shraddha. So he says, if someone has developed the faith in the scriptures, but still their nature is not elevated, meaning still he is not. So, and all of us, right, we experience this. We are chanting the holy name, but we still feel that we are still not able to overcome our worldly desires. So that means the nature is still not elevated. So he says, are such people also eligible for bhakti? This is a very important point to understand. Do we have to become completely pure, perfect to become a devotee? Or is it that through the process of bhakti we become pure? So this is the point of initiation also, because when we say someone is taking initiation, initiation means that you have faith in the principles of the scripture and you are ready to follow them. It does not mean that you have overcome all the different material desires, right? So that's why initiation means to initiate. That does not mean that one has graduated. So when we take admission into the university, that means you are submitting yourself to that process of going through the classes, going through that education system, and then at some point you will graduate. So this is what he's explains here. So he says, Shraddha is the only cause of eligibility for bhakti. That means there is no other qualification, just that faith that yes, this process is right, and what the Bhagavatam, what Bhagavad Gita, what the scriptures are saying is right. That faith alone is the eligibility for the entering the kingdom of bhakti. Nature is the cause of eligibility for karma, but not for bhakti. So by nature, we may have different tendencies, right? Because we all come from different backgrounds. We have all come from a different journey of many, many births, because of which we have certain sanskars, we have certain tendencies. He says that nature is not the eligibility for bhakti. That is eligibility for karma, but not for bhakti. And he says this is clearly stated in the following shlokas from Srimad Bhagavatam. Very, very beautiful and important verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is Lord Krishna speaking to Uddhav in Uddhav Gita, which is in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is from the 20th chapter, verse 27 and 28, where he says, Jata Shraddha Mat Kathasu Nirvinah Sarva Karmasu Ved Dukhatmakam Kaman Parityage Api Anishwaraha Tato Bhajet Mam Pritah Shraddhaluhu Drid Nishchayah Jushmanat Cha Tan Kaman Dukho Darkam Cha Garyan. So what Krishna is saying, that a sadhak, so please listen, this is a very important thing that Krishna is saying. A sadhak who has developed faith in narrations about me and who is disgusted with all kinds of fruitive activity may still be unable to give up the material enjoyment and the desire for such enjoyment. So Krishna is saying that someone who has developed taste for hearing Hari Katha, and he is also not wanting to follow the material mundane lifestyle. He is disgusted from all kinds of fruitive activities, but his mind, his chitta is still weak, that his determination is still not very strong, and therefore he is not able to give up material enjoyment and the desire for such enjoyment. Then is Krishna saying, oh, I reject them? No. He actually saying he should understand in his heart that such so-called pleasures are actually sources of misery and condemn himself while attempting to enjoy them. Therefore, in due course of time, he may be able to worship me with love, faith, and fixed determination. So Krishna is saying, even though my devotee, he is unable to control his senses, he's unable to follow things strictly because of the previous habits. He says what he should do, he should in his heart know and feel that yes, this is wrong, but out of weakness I'm still doing it. He should condemn himself while attempting to enjoy them. But what he should do, he should still continue to, with faith, follow the process of bhakti, chanting the holy name, and more importantly, hearing the Hari Katha. Therefore, he says, the someone who has developed faith in the narration. Why? Because the hearing the Katha, hearing Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavad Gita is so powerful. Like Lord Kapila says, Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavan Kirtanaha Hridayastha hi Abhadrani Vidhunoti hi Suhrit Satam. He says, anyone who hears my transcendental pastimes, this pastimes, this hearing, these narrations are so powerful. Vidhunoti Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavan Kirtana Hridayastha hi, whatever the unwanted desires are there in the heart, they will all go away. He will be purified of all such mundane desires. And then Krishna says further in the next verses, Prokten bhakti yogain bhajate ma sakrit munehe kam hridaya nashyanti sarve mai hridi sthite. He says, when such a sincere devotee who is not able to give up material desires or desire for sense enjoyment, but if he constantly worships me by the method of bhakti yoga that I have described, I come and sit in his heart. As soon as I'm established there, all material desires and the past impressions on which the material desires are based are destroyed. So he is giving this guarantee that if you continue following this process, then certainly not only the enjoyment will go away, but the root cause of that desire will go away. So not, it will be just the plant will not be cut from the top, but the root. He says, how? Because I will come and sit in the heart of such a devotee, and then everything will be, all the past impressions will be destroyed. When the sadhaka directly sees me as Paramatma situated in the hearts of all living entities, the knot of the false ego in his heart is pierced, all of his doubts are cut to pieces, and his desires for fruitive activities are completely nullified. Then he says further, Yat karma bhi yat tapasa jnana vairagya tahascha yat yogen dana dharmen shreyobhi itarahi api. He says, through the power of Bhakti Yoga, my devotees easily obtain whatever results are obtained with great difficulty through fruitive activities, austerity, knowledge, renunciation, practice of yoga, charity, religious duties, and all other auspicious types of sadhana. So that means a devotee should have this faith that the chanting of the holy name, the process of bhakti within it includes everything else. Just like Krishna within himself, because he's the source of everything. So all his incarnations, all the different forms, demigods, everyone is included within him. So if one is worshipping him, then everyone is worshipped. We don't have to do anything else. So similarly, if one is chanting the holy name, if one is following the process of bhakti, then all other types of processes, religious processes, are automatically done because they're included within this. He says, my devotees are free from all ambition, but they could easily be promoted to the celestial planets or attain liberation or residence in Vaikuntha if they at all desire such things. So, such is the compassion of the Lord. He says that my devotees, they, even if they desire something, then they will attain all those material benefits as well. First thing is they don't, of course, desire. But Krishna is saying, even if they desire, they will, all those desires will be fulfilled. But if they continue following the process of bhakti, because the process of bhakti is so powerful that if one is doing it honestly, then certainly the taste for material sense enjoyment will go away. And I think all of us here can can agree to that, or will have experienced it, right? That, as you know, some of us have come just recently, some for a few years, some many years, and every one of you must have experienced, to whatever, for whatever time that you have been following the process, that there is some sweetness, there is some joy that you are experiencing by understanding these points, by understanding the Vaishnava philosophy, by chanting the holy name, by worshipping the Lord, by offering bhog, by honoring prasadam, and the taste for some of the other things that you were doing, right? In the past, all of us must have done some other things for sense enjoyment, right? Because everyone is looking for happiness. So we were engaging in so many different things for sense enjoyment, but now we naturally don't feel inclined for it, right? In the past, if someone asked you, come over, let's go for this party, or let's go out there, we would readily go. But now, once we start feeling, oh, it's such a waste of time, why do I have to go? I would rather go to the temple, and there is some program taking place at the temple, I would rather go there. So that means some taste is developing. Now, as we go through this process, as Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur describes in Madhurya Kadambini, there will be ups and downs. There will be ups and downs. But if one, as Krishna is saying here, if one simply keeps following the process and does it with honesty, right, then certainly all those impediments will be overcome, and Krishna will manifest in the heart of such a sincere devotee, and all the sanskars will go away. And he's saying this process through which I will manifest in someone's heart is not dependent on what race one is from, what community is one from, what religion one is from. This only depends on what thing? Just one thing, which is Shraddha, which is faith in my word, faith in the process of bhakti. So now, hearing this, Chudamani will becomes even more perturbed, because Vaishnav Das ji is quoting so many beautiful verses. So then he says, well, you're quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam. What if I don't believe in Bhagavatam, right? So then Vaishnav Das ji says, that's fine. If you don't believe in Bhagavatam, this is a conclusion of all the other scriptures. And then he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, and that we will continue. We will take that next time and see how in Bhagavad Gita also, which nobody can deny, whether someone worships the personal form of the Lord, is an impersonalist, or follows karma yoga, because Bhagavad Gita everyone reads and respects. So now Vaishnav Das will quote from Bhagavad Gita and establish the same point that for bhakti, anybody is eligible. So we'll stop here. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So if anyone has any questions or comments, we can take any questions now. You can unmute if you want, if you have any question. Okay. If no questions, again, if you have any questions, you can always send it later on by WhatsApp. Angel Prabhu, do you have a question?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you for a
Krishna.
very nice class. I related to a lot of it. Thank you. So you're talking about the seed of a sin. Can you talk a little bit more of that? You said the Papa Beach,
Yes.
because
So
there's like the Bhakti Beach. So Papa Beach is like the opposite of it or something.
it's a seed of the sin, because what is that seed? That seed is to desire, that desire to enjoy independent of Krishna, just like the Bhakti Lata Beach. The Bhakti Lata Beach in Madhurya Kadambani, Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes Bhakti Lata Beach is the desire to serve Krishna, Krishna Seva Vasana. That is Bhakti Lata Beach. So similarly, the Vasana or the desire to enjoy our senses independent of the Lord, that is Papa Beach. That's a seed of all the different sins that we commit, right? So, till that desire to enjoy is not uprooted, till that desire to be independent of Krishna is not uprooted, then we will continue to perform sinful activities. We will continue to perform fruitive activities. Okay. So
But
vasana is the desire, that is the seed. The desire to enjoy independent atmendriya priti cha tare balikam. So that is lust. That is the seed to enjoy our own senses. And krishnendriya priti cha dhare premanam. And the same thing when that is to satisfy the senses of the Lord, that becomes prem or bhakti.
to satisfy the Lord instead of satisfying our own senses.
Our own senses, yes.
So
So
what is
see,
the
if
difference?
someone performs sin, it is because one performs sin only to enjoy and to satisfy one's own senses, right? So that
Sometimes.
desire is the beast. That desire is the seed.
But that's sometimes though. What about if it's like there's some kind of trauma or something that you're trying to avoid, some responsibility or something like that? Is that different?
So when you say trauma means like you go through an accident or something.
Something like that. Or some bad experience somewhere or with some people or something. It gives you a bad experience, and then you say, "Oh, well, because of that, I want to go and engage my senses because I want to forget about this thing."
Yeah, see, end of the
That
day, it is still coming because of the weakness of the mind, because it has
Mhm.
become weakened for so many lifetimes of sense enjoyment. So, see, sometimes when you are upset with people, right? People say some bad things to you, and you are just upset, and then people just go and start drinking, right? So, that's one example, because you
Right.
just want to go away from it. And that happens again because of the desire to become, now because of the, this is where the sanskar has become, your habit has become like that, that because of having done this many times previously, that you find solace in a sinful activity. So consuming liquor or drugs, this is not something which actually makes you free from that bad experience. It is, you are just postponing, you're trying to forget it, right?
Right.
So so sometimes, yeah, so see, we perform bad activities because of sanskar, because of the previous habits. But those previous habits, now the same thing, if it is happens with the devotee, someone who is still not maybe a perfect devotee, but he's still in the process, but he has taken initiation, he has faith. So Devotees also similarly go through similar experiences. They may have in the family a fight with a friend, or may lose their job, but they would not go and take shelter of activities like, drinking or anything. They would rather just go to the temple, pray to the Lord, and say, "Give me the strength," and just chant the holy name. Right?
So
So
instead of like somebody died, you're all messed up about it. Instead of going and gratifying your senses, you try to satisfy the Lord because that's the only thing that'll satisfy us.
yes,
Otherwise, we're just
ultimately,
gonna hurt
yes.
forever, right?
See, by satisfying, see, one thing is, Angel Prabhu, is when we try to satisfy our senses, and this is the nature of sense enjoyment, that it makes our senses even weaker. Okay?
Mm.
And as you can see, this is what is addiction, right? We think that by having a glass of liquor, we are forgetting our, whatever bad experience you have gone through. But that is making you more dependent on it. So the nature of sense enjoyment is that it makes you weaker. The nature of bhakti is it makes you stronger. So with every chant that you do of holy name, it makes you stronger. It gives you the strength to face anything in life. But it is just simply because of weakness of the mind, and because of having being doing sense enjoyment for so many lifetimes. Unless we come into the association of devotees, our tendency is to go towards sense enjoyment, even in the cases of trauma or bad experience, even though it does not actually solve the problem. Right? It does not solve the problem. And you know actually, any bad experience, a devotee understands that this is because of my own previous karma. Tatya anukampam susamikshamana bhunjan evatma, um, bhunjan evatma, forgetting the verse. Tatya anukampam susamikshamana bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam hritvak vapubhi vididhan namaste Jivet Mukti Padesa Dayabhak. So he says, someone who is a devotee, he understands that whatever I am experiencing in my life, it is because of my own previous karma. He doesn't blame anyone, and he only what he does, hrit vak vapubhi vidhan namaste, by his heart, by his senses, by his body, and by his words, he offers obeisances to the Supreme Lord. And he says such a person becomes qualified to become liberated from the cycle of birth and death.
Well, by the time that we get to that point, we don't want to be liberated anymore, right?
Well, when it says liberated, meaning, yeah, we don't want liberated. What that means is ultimately we get liberation, right? You When you go to the abode of the Lord, you are liberated from
Wow.
this material entanglement.
Wow, yeah.
So what it says is that compared to a person who, when he faces problems in life, one person is, and that's the tendency of most of the people, they will start blaming others, right? And they will also do things like, taking drugs or liquor, all those kind of things, right? So compared to such people, a devotee, what he does not blame anyone. And the truth is, whatever we experience or whatever problems we face, it is of our own making, maybe from this life or from previous lives. So he says that a devotee, he understands this, and then he does not blame anyone. Instead, he only engages himself in devotional service, and therefore he becomes qualified to become free from all entanglements.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for a nice class.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else, any questions? Okay, thank you, everyone. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, and everyone, please stay warm. Hare Krishna.